And Dr. Sonia Mycak is a research fellow at the Centre for European Studies at ANU and director of the Ukrainian Association of Sydney. She has family in Ukraine and joins us now live. Dr. Mycak, thank you very much for joining us. Firstly, how are you and what's your reaction to everything that has occurred in the last 24 hours?
Well, perhaps the best way to put it is that anxiety has just become anguish.
I can imagine it would be an extremely tough time for you at the moment. You've got family currently in Ukraine. Have you heard from them?
Look, I would have to say that one of the things that I should point out before I describe the position of my family is that in many ways, although Ukrainian Australians have been under enormous stress, this was not altogether a surprise. And that's because what we are seeing play out now is actually part of a war which Russia began 8 years ago. In 2014, Putin annexed Crimea and then sent troops into 2 regions in eastern Ukraine. And since that time, 15,000 soldiers and civilians have already been killed. Now, the reason I mention that is that it has a direct connection with my family experience. I have family in a city called Chernihiv. That's northeast, very close to the border with Belarus. It's actually one of the areas where the troops had been amassing over these last few weeks. And there was a fear that that would be the corridor through which Russian troops entered into Ukraine. My cousin's son, a man in his early 40s, 8 years ago when the war began, he voluntarily enlisted and was sent to those 2 eastern regions to fight. He returned to civilian life only after having been seriously wounded himself. And in the city of Chernihiv, he set up a rehabilitation centre for returned soldiers. I've been in touch with him steadily over these last few weeks, and he had been telling me that in the event of a full-scale invasion, he would organise for his wife and 2 young children to evacuate, but that he would stay and fight, that he would stay and defend his city and his country. Yesterday, it came to that. About 1 a.m. Australian time, I received a Viber video call from him. Being a video call, I could see him. I could see that he was dressed in army fatigues. I could see that he had weapons that he had been issued with. He was with 2 other men who were also preparing to report for duty. He said he only had a moment, but that he had to call me now because he may never see me again. He asked my daughter to sing a Ukrainian folk song for him. And then instead of saying our usual goodbye, he said farewell. Now, there's now active fighting in the city of Chernihiv. I can't communicate with him anymore. I can only hope that he will return home alive.
Dr. Mycak, I can't imagine how difficult this situation is for you. Do you have any understanding of his whereabouts? Have you been given any updates or anything since that video call?
No, I simply know that his wife and 2 young children have left the city of Chernihiv and they are attempting to evacuate to a western part of Ukraine. However, hearing from them, they are safe, but they haven't made it very far because many of the roads are damaged and the ones that are not damaged are clogged full of cars, people trying to evacuate. One of the things that needs to be known is that the Russian forces are not limiting themselves to, military zones or military installations. They are actually bombing residential areas. And so many of the roads are not in a state to be travelled upon.
Doctor, you have a very good understanding of the situation, better than most people. Do you believe that more could have been done to avoid this?
Unfortunately, I do. I remember thinking a few days ago that I felt in a state of regret regret that more wasn't done 8 years ago when this war was actually begun, as I said, unprovoked on the part of Russia. Certainly now, I think that we have reached the stage where sanctions alone are not enough. Sanctions are important, there's no doubt about that. Sanctions need to target the Russian economy in certain sectors. Sanctions need to target the sort of ruling class of oligarchs, of very, very wealthy Russians who enjoy a luxurious lifestyle outside of Russia. If they are prevented from having their bank accounts and their built properties and their luxurious lifestyle, that may impact on Putin's agenda. However, I think that we have now reached the stage where countries around the world need to seriously consider offering military assistance to Ukraine. Now, that doesn't necessarily need to take the form of troops. And in fact, until now, Ukraine has not requested foreign troops. However, military aid, some of which is already being provided by the United States of America, by Britain, by Canada, military aid can take the form of equipment, of expertise, of training, and particularly weapons, because although the Ukrainian army...
Doctor, I'm so sorry, I do have to interrupt you. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Our thoughts go to you and your family during this difficult period. Thank you very much for joining us.